So you do not need to do funny voices to be a really good improviser. You don't even need to do voices if you're doing characters. You can always stick to your own voice entirely. However, thinking about voice and your vocal dynamics is very important to improv, and making subtle changes to it can be extremely useful for your scenes. And if you do get into changing up your voice, it can be really fun to do those big switches when you're ready. Just considering your own voice and playing with the tone and the emphasis or the cadence is very useful in a scene. How you express emotion can be altered just thinking about your voice. Those subtle adjustments can go a long way. And none of this I speak of would be in the realm of doing a voice. It's just really playing with your own voice. To make those adjustments, it helps to know what the voice actually contains. And I covered all of the core components of vocal musicality in an earlier episode on a different show. So I'm going to summarize that information in this episode here. And then I'm going to give you 5 new improv exercises to practice with your own voice. This is Your Improv Brain, the show and the podcast. I'm your host, Jen DeHaan. I've taught and coached and done a lot of long-form improv comedy. I'm sharing how I personally think about and perform improv in these shows. And since all of our brains are completely different, some of this might resonate and the rest you can just throw away. But hopefully some of these episodes are kind of useful for your improv. Before we go on to some character-focused vocal exercises for your improv, ones you can do with others or on your own, we will first review the core components of vocal expression and how to analyze your own work. This is important because understanding these building blocks is really the first thing towards better vocal control. In some other episodes I did, and I'll link these episodes in the description, I talked about vocal speed and pacing and finding the natural rhythms and musicality of your voice for presentations. And those ideas will be useful in this episode. In one of those episodes, I told a story about how I once gave a presentation on a book that I found absolutely amazing. It was really mind-blowing to me. It was all about making regular speaking more exciting through vocal musicality. And when I gave the presentation about that book, I kind of didn't do any of those things. The audience was incredibly bored. So the main point here is that just because you're excited about something doesn't mean it necessarily translates through your voice. So by consciously using the elements of your voice, things like your rate and cadence and pitch and volume, you can create distinct characters and drive your scenes forward. So your voice, of course, delivers lines, but it's also your most effective instrument for bringing truth and humanity and relatability and all those other things to the stage. So I'll link those episodes that kind of deconstruct these vocal mechanics in the show notes. But I'll go over the basics in this episode of the things that make your voice really expressive. The words that you choose to use are just one layer of the information in general. How you say these things can completely change the meaning of the sentences that you're using. So the first one is speech rate. So this is the speed at which you speak. So a character who speaks quickly might be perceived as nervous or excited, or my Grandma Audrey or me, Jen. I can talk really fast sometimes, but I come by it honestly because it came from Audrey. A character who speaks slowly might come across as deliberate or tired or confident, perhaps. Cadence is the rhythm. Speech rate's the speed, cadence is the rhythm. So it's the rhythmic flow of your word. And this could be thought like a character's signature pattern of speech. This can help you do things like take on multiple characters and differentiate them easily for the audience. Prosody. So this is a really broad term, and it's for the features of speech beyond the words themselves. So it includes the intonation, the stress, and the rhythm. It's the core of the subtext that you might be using. And this allows you to communicate things like sarcasm or fear without actually saying those words. Like you're showing, you're not telling. And you can do that through your voice, and that's how you do it. Intonation. This is really the melody of the sentence. So in Canadian English, a rising intonation typically signals a question, and a falling intonation generally indicates that it's a statement. So on stage, you can play with this. See, that sounded like a question, but it really should have been a statement of fact. Intonation, baby. So these things all go together. Speech rate is the tempo, intonation is the melody, volume and stress are the dynamics, and cadence is the resulting rhythm. And like I mentioned before in this episode, a strong vocal variety is really important for differentiating between the characters. Because we often play multiple characters in improv without those costume changes, using your voice can really help signal to the audience who is who. In that previous episode, it also included a checklist for analyzing your own recordings. And the main idea here is to listen back to your voice. So you could redo a character at home and record yourself, or perhaps you already record your shows or you get permission for a practice. Great. Use that thing. And then you want to listen for these things: pace and rhythm. You're asking yourself if you tend to play all the characters speaking at the same speed, or are you differentiating your pace and your rhythm and your speed between your characters? Listen for vocal variety. Is your delivery really monotonous, or does your pitch rise and then fall? Then you want to notice any filler words that you might use. So you want to kind of listen for the ums or the ahs or the likes that you use, or the you knows or the so's. So this might be your character. Your character might be using these filler words, or you might just want to adjust what you yourself naturally use in your speech, because maybe the character wouldn't be using the same kind of filler words that you personally use. So this is just about listening to your recordings and making those choices for yourself and the character. So check your articulation and clarity. So you probably want to remain fairly clear most of the time for the sake of the audience to understand what you're actually saying. But perhaps for some characters, the odd character, you might play with this a bit. Those earlier episodes also covered 3 exercises to really get you started on these mechanics of your voice. It was for presentations, so I'll quickly mention them here, and I'll also add them to a download for this episode as well. And you can find that at improvupdate.com/downloads. So pace and rate control. You read a paragraph 3 times. First, as quickly as you can while staying really clear. Second, very slowly and deliberately. And third, you just kind of mix it up between those things, varying the speed, treating it like a monologue, like how you would normally deliver one of those things. Cadence and rhythm. You can take a piece of text and practice inserting pauses for emphasis right before or after keywords, and this helps you get comfortable with silence. Pitch and tone. You choose a simple neutral phrase like celebratory herald or improvising cat, and you say it in as many different ways as you can. You're conveying different emotions or different intent with those things that you're saying. If those aren't neutral phrases to you, that's on you, not me. So you can go listen to that full episode for more details. But in this episode, we're going to build on those mechanical exercises with some new improv-focused exercises designed to help you create distinct vocal characterizations. All right, so before we start, let's quickly talk about accents. So this is really personal, and people all have their own choices about what accents we do or if we really do them at all. So it is a really important thing to remember not to make any assumptions around people's physical appearance to kind of assume what their background is culturally, like what accent might be part of their experience or their family lineage. And in my opinion, it's important to never make an accent, and this would include any other vocal dynamics that are often associated with, say, a region or culture, that you never make those part of the bit or turn that into the game of the scene, ever. So it's up to everyone individually to sort out what they are comfortable with and what their thoughts are about doing accents. And it's a great idea to also have a conversation with the people that you're doing scenes with to make sure everyone is comfortable with what's going on. This is also pretty important to remember when delivering notes. Ask before making any assumptions on these things. And again, it's totally good to always just make the choice to play within your own voice and accent. That's always valid. Like once I was assigned a South Asian accent for a casual cold table read in an environment I was new in, so I didn't even know anybody there. And I just simply said no. Even after I was encouraged multiple times after first saying no, I still just said no. You can always stick to that no, or you can not say anything and just not do it, and you don't ever have to give a reason. So none of these exercises that we're doing today use accents. We're going to practice going out of our comfort zone on the musicality, the tone, the pace, the volume, the emotion, all those other things. You do not need to do any accents for these. Personally, I usually choose not to. But remember, if you're ever gifted with an accent in a scene or one of these exercises even, you can always just opt out. With that in mind, let's get into the improv exercises. You can get all of these written out in a PDF download on my website called Vocal Basics for Improv. Now, here are 5 exercises that will help with character voices, and the first of which is dubbing. So this is often done with 4 people up. So 2 people are doing the voices, and 2 people are doing the characters' bodies who are dubbing those voices. So the people doing the voices are just doing the vocals, the sentences. They're just saying the words in the scene. And the 2 other people, the bodies, they are silent, but they're moving their mouths to mimic the voices that are being spoken by the other 2, and they're adding all the physicality in the scene. So both groups need to try to match each other. Everyone is really working together in this thing. So the voices will try to match the physicality, and the physicality, the people the bodies, will try to match what the voices are doing, what actually the speech is adding to the scene. And this ends up creating a really rapid push and pull of focus. So all improvisers want to try to match that same energy and what's happening overall with whatever they're putting into the scene. And because the voice and the physicality are 2 different sets of people, sometimes it's easier to just make those big choices in an exercise like this. So try to make those big choices for your practice. That's the central point of this exercise. So there are many variations on this one, and you might have seen this exercise, an example of it, in the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? And one version that you can do solo for practice is watching a video with the audio turned off and dubbing that person that you're watching in the video. And if you're using footage for something like a live streamed improv something, there's a great repositories of public domain footage that you can search and use. And why don't I show an example of that right now?
You are the most beautiful audience. Over there, go over there.
What? Oh shit, I gotta go. Bye. I'm running.
Oh, my bloom. Oh, this is so embarrassing. You see my bloomers.
So the second example is called ranting. In this exercise, you are practicing the tone and the volume of your voice against a provided or given emotion. How you express that emotion using these elements or the musicality of your voice, that's the exercise. So the main part of this exercise is to escalate and heighten the emotion. So rants are pretty easy, so that's why it's kind of the default place to start on this one. So you're given a topic to rant about. That topic, I suggest a really good idea is to make it very mundane. So we don't get into topics we might not want to rant about, but we want to rant about them, but just not an improv. So pick something like mundane, like leaving the cap off the toothpaste bottle or something like that. And you can also be given a character description, like who is doing this rant. And if you're working solo, you can use an app or even a chat bot to get a suggestion for this one. For this exercise, the player starts really grounded, so really calm, really regular. And then as they get going in the scene, the monologue, the rant, that's when they amp up the energy. And you're going to see what that then does to your voice. So you're watching for the volume, the tone, the energy, the cadence, and the speed. And the monologue version is pretty much a solo exercise that you can do anywhere, just as you might do in a class, just maybe without an audience, maybe. So try this one on your own. I'm sorry about the volume on that one. That was your example for a rant. And I saw like the meter on there and it was solid red. So I'm sorry what that's gonna, anyways. For variations, you could do this as a scene. So one character has to heighten their emotion throughout, and one has to play it grounded. Or for an extra challenge, one character tries to de-escalate their emotion, like from a 10 to a 1 throughout the scene, and the other person in the scene has to go from a 1 to a 10. So in the middle of the scene, they're both kind of out of 5, like really testy. Okay, you get the picture. Anyways, you can also switch up the emotion. So you don't have to do rage. You can do anxiety or joy or whatever you want in this rant exercise. So some emotions might be a lot easier than others, of course. So do think about that when you're choosing them. Like you probably aren't going to want to choose calm. Or relaxed. I wouldn't recommend that one. Or the really mental ones like jealousy or boredom or over it. Okay, those aren't good choices for this one at all. So I lied about that, whatever you want. Make smart choices. That's right. So make the smart choices. Third exercise, whisper or shout. This is a variation of a viola spolin exercise. So in this exercise, two people are up and they do a normal scene just with normal voices, as you would do any other scene. Then the people in that scene are going to repeat that same scene, but this time they're only going to do it in a whisper. Then they repeat it again, and this time they're shouting. All right, then you could do a bonus round, and you could use all three things. You can whisper, you can shout, or you can speak normally. And that changing in between them is a pretty good exercise in itself. And another bonus round is my newsletter. So you can sign yourself up at improvupdate.com and I'll send you my human writing and I'll send you a download if you sign up. You get a special download just for signing up and that helps you mentally work through your improv sessions after the fact. So after you do these exercises, you're going to reflect on them in that PDF and I'll give it to you. You just got to sign up. So let's go to the fourth exercise. This one, voice, attitude, posture. So this idea comes from Jill Bernard's small, cute book of improv. And the concept of Jill's is that if you do one of these things, voice or attitude or posture, you get the other two for free. So it's a great deal, as is her book. Check out her book. In this context, practicing voice, we want to be very aware of how the other two things affect the voice specifically and vice versa. So you're going to start by doing a regular scene again and just figure out your character. What's your character's deal? Then you consciously change one thing about that character, either their attitude or their posture. Then you do the scene again, or you do another scene, but just with that same character. The main thing is just do that character again and just see how that one thing you chose to change affects that character's voice. So the attitude or the posture. You want to pay special attention to how the attitude and the posture affect the voice when you analyze that second scene with that same character. You can also, or instead, try changing the voice of the character and notice how it affects your attitude or your posture. So the main point is to become aware of these things and see how it can help with your voice and your characterization. Like just awareness is half the battle. So this one is pretty easy to practice solo. Just decide to change your attitude or your posture and see how it affects your own voice. You can deliver a monologue about the same story and try it that way, or just annoy someone that you live with or your dog. So you might think this is a little bit of a bit, but dogs will really pick up on these things. So I came upstairs doing a character and my new dog, Susan, would not stop barking at me because I had a different voice and presumably attitude and posture. And she just wasn't used to this. Like I normalized it with my other dogs. They knew I was doing a character and they're just like, they were over it. But my new dog, Susan, she was just like, I have no idea what's going on. So dogs will pick up on this. The more you know. So fifth. This is your bonus round. This is a special bonus round. So there's an exercise that I've done before in improv where you just sing the dialogue. So this isn't a song, this isn't musical improv, but you're doing it kind of opera or musical. Sometimes musicals have this, where you're just doing that thing where they sing the sentences to move the plot along at a faster speed. And there's just like basic music notes in the background. If you're familiar with that, that's what this exercise is. So this is called Recitative. And I'm not going to do a demo of it right now because I want to keep the subscribers that I have. The more you know. But I'll put a link in the show notes to an example of this. Now, there's no right or wrong way. You just sing the sentences instead of speaking them. It's a very literal voice musicality improv exercise, like pretty much the most literal you can do. And if you want to do this one solo, decision one day to speak in recitative wherever you go. Your people that you come across or the people that you live with or your dog will absolutely love it so much. Just be sure to bring a coat in case they kick you out the door. I don't know. Oh my. That was awful. That was awful. That was awful, guys. I lied again. You got a demo, and I probably have no subscribers anymore. And that's on the internet for posterity too. Talk about going outside of your comfort zone. Anyways, all these exercises are about building up your awareness and expanding your range one step at a time. You don't need to create like 100 voices or even a second voice. You don't need to practice all of these things at once. Just choose one thing to work on and then move on to the next thing. And you can absolutely just get comfortable playing with the voice you have already and seeing how just small changes to your pitch or your pace or your posture can create or affect your character. And as a reminder, you can get all of these exercises, including the ones I summarized from the last episode, written out in a PDF download, which is going to be called Vocal Basics for Improv, and you can find it on the website improvupdate.com. And I'll be back later on for another episode. Bye for now.